And now I'm free to go. My tongue cannot be moved. The only life I know, and only time will prove. Yes, only time will prove. I have lost my way. 'Cause I hear tell about a heavenly mountain where they've gone all day. I have lost my way, but I hear about a heavenly mountain where we've got all the way.
Hi, everyone. Frankie here. New West Reset. Welcome. Thank you very much for shooting in, joining me here tonight for another New West Reset Live. So I think this is, I don't even, fellas done lost count. A guy's lost count. I think this is my 6th, 7th, something like that. Anyway, very excited to be jumping in this live stream here tonight, and very excited to have you join me. So thank you very much. And today is kind of a big deal. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here. A guy's not gonna keep these things to himself, okay? I'll let you in. This is an exclusive here. Today was the first official day of the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, the world's biggest rodeo. We had the big parade downtown here in Calgary today. And I think officially this is the 100th or 102nd, depends who you ask. But anyway, the parade this morning. And then the festivities kick off when the Stampede grounds and the rodeo grounds and the Midway and whatnot open up at 11 a.m. after the parade's over. And then the hootenanny begins, along with the shenanigans and the chicanery and the tomfoolery. And that's kind of that's the big thing. That's kind of the thing here in Calgary. That's kind of our claim to fame is the Calgary Stampede. It's a big rodeo and it's a big 10-day thing. But it's not just a rodeo. There's, of course, it's like a big fair, right? They have the Midway with all the rides and the games and all that stuff, and the food, the crazy food, corn dogs, and hell, you name it, deep fried, all kinds of stuff on the Midway, barbecue beef on a bun, all that good stuff. A lot of cowboy themed things, because that seems to be the narrative for Calgary, is that it's all cowboys and Indians, you see, cowboys and Indians. So that's what I thought we would talk about today for this live stream here in July. I try to do one every month. I accidentally skipped June because, stuff. And, time can get away from a guy, which is ironic considering my logo here. But anyway. So the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, and the exhibition part is because it is not just a rodeo, it's a big exhibition as well. They show, agricultural equipment, farm equipment. There's cattle auctions, horse auctions, uh, you name it. The latest and the greatest that has to do with the farming community, the ranching community, all that stuff. Everything from the newest barbed wire right down to the best tractors and combines and all that stuff. Bull semen. Oh, bull semen everywhere for some reason. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede. It's, give or take, it's 100 years old. It's kind of a big deal around here. It's our claim to fame. And I've mentioned in the past on this channel in other live streams that Calgary has never had a World's Fair. We've never hosted a World's Fair or a big Expo, as they're called in modern times, right? There's a few Canadian cities that have hosted Expo. Montreal hosted Expo in 1967. Vancouver hosted Expo in 1986. I went to that one. My parents went to the Expo 67 in Montreal because that's where they were living at the time. And I wasn't born yet. The feller was still a twinkle in his daddy's eye. Anyway, Calgary has never hosted such a thing. We did host Winter Olympics in 1988, the big Winter Olympic thing, because we're right here in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. So, Winter Olympics, we have a lot of snow and, they can do the skiing and the ski jumping and all the winter events. But never any kind of World's Fair. And I always thought that was kind of funny because of the narrative with Calgary. Calgary is a boom town. It's the biggest city in Alberta. It's like the fourth largest city in Canada. The narrative that it's grown rapidly and it's, it's this sort of cosmopolitan city, even though we're out in the western part of Canada, the prairies. Gateway to the Rocky Mountains, the gateway to the New West. And Canada's pretty big, so we're kind of far out here. But it's always been this sort of touted as this world-class city, and we've got a lot of, I've always had and currently have and will continue to have, political big shots and big bureaucrats visit us from all over the world, all that stuff. Kings and queens and presidents and all this from everywhere, right? And when you look at maps of the layout of the older part of the city of Calgary, you can see where the old Fort Calgary was and all kinds of crazy stuff that leads me to believe that, I wonder why there was never any kind of World's Fair here. At one time, Calgary here in Canada was dubbed as Sandstone City because of all of these beautiful castle-like old world structures downtown that were built out of rough-hewn sandstone blocks. And a lot of them are still there today, and we're going to take a look at those probably next month after the Stampede's over and things settle down with tourist season and we can get down to Stephen Avenue where all those sandstone buildings are, and you'll see what I mean. But then it hit me as, okay, I think I figured out why we've never had a big expo or a World's Fair here in Calgary, even though we're supposed to be this big world-class city. And that's because they didn't bother with doing it as a big one-shot, a one-time thing, like in other big cities, in St. Louis or in London or New York, San Francisco, wherever. Because the narrative between Calgary and San Francisco is eerily similar. You just replace cattle and oil with the gold rush and you get Calgary. Or vice versa. You replace the gold rush, with cattle and oil. There's oil in them there hills. The next thing you know, there's thousands of people here, right? Well, then I realized, the reason why we haven't had any kind of big World's Fair in a one-shot is because they just keep hammering us every year. Exhibition and Stampede. It's basically a World's Fair or like an indoctrination event on global scale, 1 million people visit the Stampede every year. And they do it every year as opposed to just a one-time thing. And they really pushed the narrative of, the cowboys and the Indians, and it was the Wild West, and there was nothing out here but scrub and prairie, and then in the mountains, and there was just buffalo, and there was wild Indians, and that was it, And then all of a sudden, some fur trappers came and some early pioneers and built some log cabins, and next thing you know, a few years later, boom, Sandstone City springs up out of the prairies with these castle-like structures. So they got to reinforce the whole narrative that the cowboys came here because of the ranching industry, and it was really successful. And then the railroads came in, and that helped bolster the cattle industry and the slaughterhouses because they could ship cattle a lot more quickly. There was a lot of wealthy cattle ranchers out here, so a lot of merchants came out here, and pretty soon Calgary started to boom. And then there was a second boom when they discovered oil. The thing is, much like the gold narrative in San Francisco, with it being like 50 miles away from San Francisco where actual gold was found, same kind of thing here in Calgary. The first big oil deposit that was found was like 30 or 40 miles from Calgary. So elements of Calgary had to already be here prior to that for it to be used as the hub. So I think a lot of these old structures were already here, and they were just repurposed. And then they came in with this narrative of the Wild West, like Clint Eastwood movies and stuff. That's basically what they say went on up here, and to some extent I'm sure it was, but I don't think it was quite the way it was, because they really pushed this Wild West lawlessness, cowboys and Indians and buffalo thing. They really pushed that hard out here, and it's every year with the Stampede. It's over 10 days, usually right around the beginning of July, right after the long weekend, at the and July 4th weekend. And not only is it a 10-day affair, but the whole city gets behind it. I mean, people dress Western, people wear their cowboy hats and wear jeans, even to work, even in the corporate world downtown in Calgary. People that normally would wear expensive suits and ties to work Monday to Friday, they're wearing jeans, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, Western shirts, and it's a whole big thing. And there's free chuck wagon pancake breakfasts all over the city, and it's like Carnival or Mardi Gras, but cowboy style. That's basically what they're doing here. It's like, howdy fellers, come on in, get along, little doggies. And they push people through the gates of the Calgary Stampede fairgrounds, rodeo grounds, and it's just like the indoctrination centers of old, in the Victorian era, when we were seeing in Paris and in London and New York and other cities, not even like big, huge, major cities with millions of people either. There were smaller cities of 20 or 30,000 people apparently that would host these world fairs back in the 1800s and early 1900s, which is crazy to me. So anyway, speaking of late 1800s, early 1900s, the Calgary Stampede was started by a guy named Guy Wiedeck, who actually was an American, and he was kind of a showman. He kind of used to run one of them. He was like a carnival barker, kind of like a P.T. Barnum kind of a guy. Anyway, he was up here in the area, southern Alberta, near Calgary. I can't remember why he was up here, but he decided to combine the whole cowboy thing. And when I say cowboy, I'm talking, in the 1890s, early 1900s, actual cowboys, farm hands that herd cattle. They rope cattle and hog tie the cattle so they can brand them, and like real cowboy, a working job. And they lived on the ranch, worked on the ranch, and on their time off they would maybe come into the nearest town or city. So he saw this lifestyle, and he saw how these guys, horse breakers, for example, take these wild broncos, and they would, ride them until the horse broke and wouldn't buck them off anymore, all that kind of stuff. And he kind of parlayed that and combined it with this sort of a circus type of atmosphere, and created the rodeo mixed with the circus and the showmanship, and created this whole Calgary Stampede. And he added the whole exhibition thing too, where they would have other sort of shows on the side, agricultural events and 4-H club shows and cattle auctions. And they still have a lot of that stuff today. And they would have crazy stuff too, right? Like they didn't just have regular rodeo stuff. They would have, horse pulling competitions and all kinds of goofy stuff. And even today, we still have crazy, goofy stunts that they pull for promotional purposes for the Stampede. So what I thought I would do first is share a quick little video from 1947 that is an actual feature film short that was filmed by, I think, Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken, as part of a big ad campaign for the Calgary Stampede. So it's very, very touristy, and you'll have to excuse some of the language used, not the most PC or politically correct, not the most sensitive. I have to sort of take it with a grain of salt that they're, speaking in the parlance of the time. But I thought it's very interesting because it very very much in your face, kind of, in hindsight, looking back on it. Of course, we say hindsight is 20/20. Well, of course, but looking back on it, you can see how the whole narrative is broken down into real simple terms, so that it's real easy for people to just kind of go, oh, okay, Calgary, all right, Wild West, cowboys and Indians. Okay, I get it. A bunch of shit-kicking cowboys kicking up, like we're a bunch of, I don't know, Billy the Kids and Jesse James out here and Wild Bill Hickox or something. But anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to hold up a bunch of photos of some of the old posters from, sort of between 1911 through the 20s. And then some old photographs going back into the teens and the 20s as well. But I thought we'd start off with this pretty neat video that I found, this little movie clip that I found on the old interwebs. That there's information superhighway. So yeah, let's check this out. I think it's called. I think it's just called Calgary Stampede.
A name whose roots are embedded deep in the romance and traditions of the Old West. Calgary, once a rootin'-tootin' Wild West town sprawled over the crossing of rangeland trails. Today, a bustling city in the heart of Canadian Rockies. This is the week of the Great Stampede, and all roads lead to Calgary. 7 days of history and legend borrowed from the past. Guests from every province of the Dominion and many from below the border, given hearty welcome by Indian braves who join with the white men in celebration of a tradition that can never die. Turn back the clock to those hardy days when even ladies traveled by stagecoach and wagon. For the week of the Stampede, rule taxicabs off Calgary streets and get to your diggings by stage and wagon. Stampede hospitality cuts high, wide, and handsome. Rough riding for dudes, but if you're here for a look at the Old West, that's the way you'll be riding from now to next Sunday. Free music, Western style, for those who want to hear it. And for those who don't, free grub. Western flapjacks and Rocky Mountain Red Hots, with a slab of bacon thrown in. Howdy, stranger. Step right up and have your fill. It's all on the town and for the asking. Fun in the streets before the big show gets underway.
Just going to jump in here for, is it me or people did not look like they were enjoying those flapjacks and bacon samplings? Just the look on their faces. Anyway.
7 days of history and legend borrowed from the past. Guests from every province of the Dominion and many from below the border, given hearty welcome by Indian braves who join with the white men in celebration of a tradition that can never die. It may not be Fred Astaire, but it rates a solid hand. Dance of the Medicine Man. In the old days, his word was the law of the tribe in matters of health, ethics, and prophecy. It's not much like the old-fashioned firewater, but on a hot day like this, it does the trick.
Yeah. Fire water. Did he say fire? He did say fire water. Yeah, well, you know.
Night over Calgary, and the dark of the sky is filled with the beauty of color on fire. Heavenly carnival, splintering the black of night into patterns of color that dazzle the earthbound eye. Thus, Calgary on the eve of the big show. Celebration in fiery colors while waiting for the dawn that will herald another day, the great day of the Stampede. Flags of Canada and the United States draped side by side, friendly hands across the border. There's something about a parade, it's hard to say what, but it quickens the pulse and stirs the blood of young and old alike. Maybe it's the flags, maybe it's the martial beat of military bands. Here's a sight to brighten the dullest eye and raise the voice in loud hurrah. Make way for the Bonnie Scot and the swirl and whirl of Scottish bagpipes. You'll never get on film what that child gets in her eyes and heart. Queen of the Calgary Stampede.
Oh, all hail the queen, the Stampede queen. Always got to have a queen of the fair, I guess.
A lifetime of living in 7 shiny days. Cavalcade of the Old West and the New. Pageantry that is the history of Calgary and all the Canadian West. A living panorama reaching back into the mists of time when the Indian roamed this vast territory. When men traveled by horse and wagon across the continent itself. Up to the coming of the railroad and the first motor cars.
When man traveled across the continent in a horse and wagon, and they built massive fiery structures out of stone and brick, when there was only about 300 dudes around to do the job. Oh, by the way, they were all farmers and cattle ranchers and cowboys and Indians, by the way.
And here we are, right in the modern era, jitterbugs and all. This little doggie's been eating tumble and tumbleweeds blown in from Texas. That's what the man said. Marching's a pleasure behind a band like that. The Shriners out in all their glory.
Yep. They always they gotta be there. Some there another. Shriners slash Freemasons, right? Always gotta stick their nose in. They throw a pretty good circus, though. I will give them that.
Close to the end, and a seat feels mighty nice, even on the curbstone. The Calgary float, with the guard of honor alongside, proud to be part of this dedication to a past in which they played so important a role.
There's the float, the official float of Calgary, with the official narrative that Calgary was founded by the Northwest Mounted Police in 1881 at Fort Calgary, which a couple of Mounties built. And they were sent out here on behalf of the Hudson's Bay Trading Company to help protect the territories from American whiskey traders, cattle rustlers, and wild Indians. They got to protect the fur trade. So there's your official name on a float right there. Calgary, 1881. Couple of minutes there. Of course, engines. Apologies. Not sure. You doesn't like it. So, apology for the technical difficulties. Straight out best we can. Not sure what the deal is. Just hold tight for a moment, if you don't mind. Let's see what's going on here. Realm is here. Welcome. Good to see you. Thank you very much for shooting in. Hello. Thanks for shooting in. Good to see you. He says, wish I got here on time. Well, you didn't miss much. I was rambling for probably the first 20 minutes. And then we're just looking at this old film footage of the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede from 1947. Yeah, I'm sorry. My internet is terrible. It's actually not. I have the highest of high-speed internet that I can get, and I pay handsomely for it. But funny that you mentioned that. There's been something goofy going on up here in Canada with the Rogers Communications Network, which provides some internet service, cell phone service. So all day today, a lot of the stores, their Interact debit wasn't working, so people could only pay cash, or in some cases, credit card would work. But there's been dodgy internet because we really only have a couple of internet providers up here in Canada. They like to just give us the illusion of choice. So the excuse that Rogers Communications was giving was that they were updating their system, and there must have been some kind of glitch or some kind of problem with the system update. But who knows, right? I don't know what's going on. We can only really go by what they tell us. And, take that with a grain of salt, right? So yeah, once again, my apologies for the interwebs. It's not the best. It's supposed it's supposed to be the best, but it's not the best right now. So yeah, it's crazy. People were getting really ticked off too, because people would order a meal at a restaurant, like not a fast food joint, but a sit-down restaurant. And again, today was the first day of the Calgary Stampede. Roughly between 80,000 and 100,000 people visit the Stampede grounds every day. Over 10 days, it's on average right around 1 million people visit the Stampede. That's the rodeo, the midway, the fairgrounds, the exhibition centers, all in one big, massive area. So there are thousands of people, and it's just east of downtown. So there's thousands of people downtown whining and dining. We had the parade in the morning, so maybe after that they have a lunch somewhere, and then they go down to the rodeo. So they sit down at a restaurant and order a meal, and they go to pay with their debit, and the restaurant says, "No, sorry, no debit. The debit's down. Only cash or credit card." Well, who carries cash on them? Especially if you're a tourist, right? So in most cases, credit cards worked, but not in all cases, depending what bank and what network the restaurant used for their banking credit card service. So you could end up having to, I don't know, go to an ATM machine, but even some of those were down. So yeah, it's been a goofy day. Really crazy. So yeah, I apologize for that. It's yeah. You don't go. I usually do go. I don't go every year, to be honest. It's expensive, and it's basically the same thing every year, right? And that's kind of the point of this stream, is that it's basically a cowboy indoctrination. They just pound it into our heads year in and year out, and it's been around 100 years that they've been doing it every year. That this is the narrative for Calgary now, y'all. Now, hush you up and listen now. Now sit down a spell and let me talk at you now and tell you what's going on around these here parts, boy. This here's cowboy and Indian country, you see, the Wild West. You understand me? And everyone nods their heads. Oh, okay, I get it. All right, now get along, little doggies. Yeah, now go on, get. Yeah. Right? So I don't go every year. I'll go every second year or every third year because I do enjoy the rodeo. I like the rodeo events. Most of them are really cool. Professional cowboys and cowgirls are tough as nails. And the events themselves are really exciting to watch. You're sitting in the grandstand and it can get hot. Because, it's July. So it's, like today it went up to 29 Celsius, which is about 95 Fahrenheit. And I mean, you could get a few degrees hotter than that still. So, you're sitting there for hours and it's dusty, right? Because the rodeo grounds itself, whatever the event is, whether it's bull riding or bronco busting or the chuck wagon races, it's all on dirt tracks, a dirt arena, if you will, and it's outdoors. It's not inside anywhere. The only thing that's inside are some of the exhibitions. It's like pavilions that are set up. And these are all permanent structures. I mean, some big top tents and stuff go up. And of course, the midway with the rides is all temporary, but the grandstand's permanent. And the local professional hockey team, the Calgary Flames, they play at the arena that's also on the rodeo ground. So it's all a big thing. I do like the rides too, of course. A guy likes to go on the zipper and the whipper and the twirly thing and the thingamajigga that makes you throw up and whatever, right? Sure. It's a lot of fun. But, just to get into the joint's like $20, I think. Then you got to buy tickets for the rides. Most rides cost you like 6 or 7 tickets for the good rides. And you get 50 tickets for like, I don't know, $60 or whatever the hell. It adds up quick. You want a bottle of water when you're down on the fairgrounds because it's almost 100 degrees? It's $5, please. That'll be $5. Oh, today, yeah, the debit machines aren't working. Sorry. Sorry, tourist from Japan. It's cash only. What, you don't have any Canadian cash on you in your pocket? Oh, sorry. Right, so. Look who's here, I'm out for Marcus Christians. Welcome, welcome. Good to see you, brother. Marcus is going to be bearing the heavy burden of helping to keep an eye on things for us here this evening for this New West Reset live stream. We tend not to get a lot of trolling here. It's more the other way around. People just ignore me. Yeah. And YouTube hates me, which is maybe why the crappy, as soon as I recommence, as soon as I continue the video, the internet's going to get all spotty again. You watch. But anyway, see you, Marcus. It says hard to believe I actually caught a live stream. That's awesome. It's good to see you. Thank you. So yeah, those of you that are here, welcome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you shooting in. And there's going to be a lot of you shooting in after the fact when this gets re-uploaded. Again, stick with me. The interwebs is kind of going in or out. I don't know why. I got 5 out of 5 on my desktop for my Wi-Fi here. It's not cloudy. It's not stormy. It's not raining. It's not windy. I don't know what the deal is. YouTube hates me. That's what it is. Anyway, let's see if we can get back to this thing. But I left off with there's the float for the official narrative for Calgary. That's better. Why didn't I do that before? Or did I? I don't know. Anyway, the official narrative. There's Fort Calgary in the background on the mural there with some Mounties. And then, of course, some wild Indians. Don't get me wrong, by the way. The wild Indians thing, I don't like the term, but that's the narrative that they try to use, right? Is the quote unquote cowboys and Indians thing. I like to call them First Nations or indigenous people because they were among the first here. So hence First Nations. It makes sense to me. But anyway, let's see if we can get this thing rolling. If it starts to get really glitchy, maybe I'll pause it again, and I don't know. We'll do our best. I'm sorry. Bear with me. Typical Canadian, I'm just going to keep saying sorry. I'm oot and a boot, and I'm sorry, eh? Anyway, here we go.
With the Guard of Honor alongside, proud to be part of this dedication to a past in which they played so important a role. A prize for the best-dressed mounted Indian, the best-dressed squaw, a special prize for the only...
Yes, that's right. He said it. The best-dressed squaw. The words can barely leave my lips.
In the parade. The parade's over, and all head for Victoria and the big show that is about to begin. The last-minute rush for tickets. It'll only be a few minutes now. And here we are inside Victoria Park. The grandstand and bleachers jam-packed full and spilling over to a few thousand fence-sitters. Last ceremonials before the bugle sounds off the start of the big show. Present colors.
The parade's over, so everybody head down to the Stampede grounds so we can watch another parade, I guess. Man, it is coming in spotty. I don't get it. It's either StreamYard's fault or it's YouTube's fault. Hey, I got to blame somebody. Yeah, I'm paying $100 a month for this interwebs. It's supposed to be the top-notch stuff. Anyway, here we go.
A moment's pause, and they're off. Cowboys from Canada and the United States. Championship trophies, saddling wild horse. The wildest, orneriest collection of critters ever brought together for a single show. Hold tight, Cowboy, for a fast ride to nowhere.
By the way, PETA, the people for the ethical treatment of animals, they hate Calgary Stampede. They absolutely hate it. I mean, they hate all rodeos, right? I mean, you know, occasionally animals are injured, but more often than not, it's the cowboys and cowgirls, the cow folk that are putting their necks on the line. You know, the animals are just doing what they do. You know, you get a half wild horse or a half wild ornery bull, long bull, and some human jumps on its back. It's going to try to get him off. Hey, get off me, buddy. What are you trying to do here? Right? I mean, it makes sense. But yeah, PETA hate the Stampede with a passion.
Down the stretch, pounding dirt, headed straight for home. Championship trophy for milking wild cow. Two men to a cow. The trick is for one man to hold the cow steady while the other man milks her. At least 1 inch of milk into the bottle. Obviously no meeting of the minds here. After all, how wild can you get, even if you're a cow? The lady says no, no, 1,000 times no. She's just not giving out today, not even a little inch. Ah, now, this is more like it. And he's off to the judge's stand. 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch of white stuff. Thanks, madam. And
It's milk, by the way. They're milking cows. I know I joked about bull semen earlier in the stream, but that's just the bull semen's a whole different thing. That's not what this is. The bull semen thing is for breeding purposes to get the best cattle for, you know, that world famous Alberta beef and, you know, and for rodeo cattle as well, for, you know, the bulls, for the bull riding and whatnot. But yeah, they're just milking cows here, but they are wild cows. That's why these cowboys are getting their asses handed to them by these cows.
Lickety-split to the judge's stand with a precious nectar. Championship trophy, North American bucking horse. 10 seconds on board qualifies the rider. Look out, here comes double trouble. 1, 2, 3 seconds and out. It's a long way down, bub. Gray Blizzard isn't having any today. Brown Fury with American Cowboy up and down.
They always give the horses crazy names too, like Gray Blizzard and Skull Crusher, because you can see these horses are jumping like 6-8 feet in the air, which launches the cowboy another 6 or 8 feet in the air, and he's just got a little bit of that soft groomed dirt to land on, and maybe it's a little bit of hay or straw thrown in there for good measure, but that's, I mean, he's not landing on, you know, mattresses or airbags or, you know, fluffy feather pillows or anything. But yeah, the horses and the bulls, they always have super intimidating names, you know, like Widowmaker and stuff like that. It's hilarious.
Only 10 seconds. Only an eternity. Storm warning on a rampage. Dynamite on the hook. Look out! Atomic Explosion doesn't seem to realize he's being ridden by a champion. That is, was ridden by an ex-champion. Greased lightning in action. That's all, brother. Here's a winner. Watch him. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and still on board. The first man to qualify.
They've since changed that. It's now 8 seconds. It's now 8 seconds to stay on. Yeah, you got that right. It is a brutal beatdown for a human. Yeah. Yeah, see? The names are out of this world, right? Atomic Explosion and, Apache's Revenge. All kinds of crazy names. But yeah, these cowboys are just getting their asses handed to them on a silver platter, which is about the size of their belt buckles, by the way. Often that's what they hand to rodeo champions rather than a trophy, is they get a cash prize, of course, and then they get a bunch of sponsored prizes. They get maybe, back in the day, they'd get horses as prizes too, but they'd also, instead of giving a championship trophy, they'd get a big belt buckle, sterling silver and gold with brass, and super fancy, worth hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Yeah, they are. They're basically at the drag. Have a whole new meaning to drag strip. Instead of that's real horsepower dragging these guys around.
Championship trophy, calf roping. Catch as catch can. Rider to rope calf, throw him, and tie him up tight. Champion can do the trick in 15 seconds or less. An armful of calf with serious objections to being roped, thrown, and tied. Try this someday on your kitten.
Or on your little brother. Just saying.
He may be a beautiful calf to her, but he's a pain in the neck to me. Now stay down, doggie. Get the knot on. Circle, turn, twist, and pull. As neat a bundle of baby beef as ever hit the dirt. Time, 23 seconds. Championship trophy, steer decorating. Rider to slip a red ribbon over Wilder's horn. Mission accomplished.
That event has changed too. It's now steer wrestling. And the rider slips off his horse in the same way that they do for this steer decorating, I think they called it, which is weird. It's a weird name. I'm just going to hang some curtains across the horns of this really pissed off bull. He put some carpeting around his hooves, his paw, hoof, foot, hoof. Anyway, now it's steer wrestling. They slide down onto the steer or the bull off their horse, much in the same way they do here. But they have its horns and they kind of headlock, kind of turn it over, pulling the horns and turning the bull's head, right? And then they've got to make the bull kind of roll down onto its side. Very exciting, but very, very dangerous.
These are the decoration ribbons to be attached to the wild steer's horn. This one doesn't go for the idea. Here's another one that disapproves of the whole business. Look out, cowboy, there's blood in his eye and death in those wicked horns. The champion in action, as pretty a bit of steer decoration as the Calgary Stampede has ever seen. Won by an Indian cowboy who beat out the top American and Canadian contestants. Time, 4 4/5 seconds, from start to finish.
Let's see. So because he's Indian, he's not American Canadian. He's just, well, he's Indian. You mean he's from, what is he, from India? No, he's Indian. Okay, is he American Indian or is he Canadian, Indigenous, Native? What? Oh, no, just Indian. Oh, okay. Champion Indian, I guess. All right.
Championship trophy, wild steer riding. Ride the wild. Oops, the ride's over. Disgusted, boy. That's how we felt the last time we tried it. He's off. He's on. No, he's off. Yep, he's off permanently. He's off. No, not quite. Shake loose, Cowboy, and take your bump before there's an accident.
Yeah, that's actually really dangerous. They get their the rope that they hang on to. They wrap it around their hands several times, really tight, because these bulls weigh 1,200, 1,500 pounds, and they're super pissed off. They do lots of stuff to the bull to get them riled up before they open that gate. They poke them and prod them and rattle cowbells at them, and they just get them riled up. And then the cowboy sits his ass down on that thing, and he wraps the rope real tight around his gloved hand. And sometimes when he gets thrown off of the angry beast, he can't loose his hand from that rope quick enough, and he can get entangled. And then they can end up getting tossed around like a rag doll, get their shoulder dislocated, break their arm in several places, and of course get gored by the bull. So yeah, it's again really, really dangerous.
Bareback on board a wild bull. It's no life for a dude. Of the obstreperous bull in 3 movements: buck, pitch, and bump. Start of the one horse race. These events go on simultaneously. Wild steer breaking in the infield, horse racing around the track. Provides plenty of hard, fast action inside the track and out. Championship trophy, chuck wagon race.
This here's one of my favorite events, the chuck wagon races. It's much more complicated than you might think. This is super dangerous. These things smash into each other all the time. These guys that drive those chuck wagons, I think they're half crazy.
The Rangeland Derby, world's only chuck wagon race. Based on ranch life in the days when the West was still unrest and cowboys rode herd every day. Stoves piled on board and they're off. A wide figure 8 leads to the race course around the half-mile track. Swing wide and clear track ahead. Keep rolling. It's all in the game for riders and horses alike. Ready for the next heat. They're off. Third heat up, and it's every man and horse for himself. Fourth heat up, and slam bang they go. Canvas flying, wheels rim to rim. Last heat of the day. Circle guide barrels in figure 8. Wagons rocking, horses stampeding. There they go. Around the bend and into the home stretch. It's now or never. High spot of the Stampede, neck and neck to a photo finish. Fitting climax to a week of high thrills and excitement. See you again next year for more of the same.
See why that's my favorite event. It's absolutely dumbfoundingly dangerous and exciting and crazy, and it hasn't changed in 100 years. And like I said, it's a little more complicated than it looks. Basically, it's not just the guys going around the track in a chuck wagon and the first one across the finish line after so many laps wins, although it's kind of that. But when the horn goes, you have what are called outriders, and each chuck wagon rider has four, or each chuck wagon driver has 4 horses, a 4-horse team pulling his wagon. And then he has 4 what are called outriders, which are just separate guys on horseback also on his team. When the horn blows, those 4 outriders have to throw a stove into the back of the chuck wagon and then get on their horses, and all of them have to do that right around those barrels, and then we're on the track. But the thing is, the outriders have to cross the finish line before the outriders of the chuck wagon that crosses the finish line first. See, it's complicated and crazy. The outriders of the first place chuck wagon have to cross the finish line before the very last chuck wagon crosses the finish line. Otherwise, they're disqualified. They don't have to cross the finish line at the same time as the chuck wagon does, but they have to cross it before the last chuck wagon does. And they're the guys that have to load it in the stove into the chuck wagon, and boom, the chuck wagon can take off, but then they have to mount their horses and then catch up to the chuck wagon. So yeah, it's crazy. It's super dangerous. You can see they crash. They still do all the time. And same thing today. Wooden chuck wagons, 4-horse team, throwing a stove in the back, 4 outriders. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Yeah, 1947. Yeah, pretty ballsy. Absolutely. Well, see, and again, it's pushing that narrative of Calgary, the Wild West and the crazy cowboys, and the lawlessness and all that, right? So, yeah, pretty cool.
Canada and the United States, peaceful neighbors across an unguarded border, friend rivals for cowboy honors at the greatest show on earth, the Calgary Stampede.
So there you go. A nice little propaganda film there. Pretty decent production value, and but reinforcing the whole idea of the whole cowboy thing. But that said, I have to stress and reiterate and repeat myself. I do love the rodeo. It's fantastic. And although I don't go to the Stampede every year, as mentioned earlier, maybe every second or third year or something like that, it's expensive and it's hot and it's dirty and crowded and noisy and I got to go into the downtown to get there and But anyway, that said, it's pretty great. But if I don't go, it's all the rodeo events are plastered all over the like the daily events and all the standings and the highlights. It's like hockey or football or basketball or anything else. They show the highlights at the end of every day on the news, or even here on the interwebs. I can just look it up on the old HooTubes. I could just beep, boop, bop it, and it'll just shoot up right into my face. So you almost can't get away from it for those 10 days in July here for the Stampede. If you're not into it, God Almighty help you, because you're surrounded by it. Like I said, the whole city, we all dress Western, cowboy boots, jeans, cowboy hat. It's like Mardi Gras, but for cowboys, basically what it is. And the entire city smells like horse manure and beer vomit for a week and a half. So that's nice. A guy can really appreciate that. So again, apologies for the reception. I don't know what's going on. All I know is that it's been breaking news all over the place up here all day today that Rogers Communications Network had some kind of problem. Debit machines were down all over the place. It pretty much didn't matter where you went. Rogers is the service, it seems, that's used for banking transactions for most debit terminal at retail places. So it was cash or credit card only, and sometimes credit card didn't even work. So then you had to go to an ATM machine, but some of those weren't working. And I'm sure the ones that were working emptied very quickly. So that's fun. Be prepared. Be a prepper. Be of sound mind, and always carry some cash, and always have lots of food stored away somewhere safe in case you can't get cash to buy food. This is a good example of that. Some cell phone service was down because Rogers Communications is a major cell service provider up here. And also all the government services use Rogers Communication. So that's fun. Have an important package delivered but via Canada Post. Good luck tracking it. Even if it's your grandma's new kidney or something. Good luck. That's Canada Post. Pretty much. Good luck anyways. Oh, we'll get the mail to you, eh? Well, don't worry about it there, bud. We'll get it to you, eh? So, sometime. Oh, for sure there, bud. You'll get it. Just take it easy, bud. We're out and about doing it, eh? You'll get it. So yeah, apologies for the maybe what I'll do is once this thing is all processed and re-uploaded to the HooTubes, maybe what I'll do is I'll re-edit it. I'll splice out the dodgy part of that little Calgary Stampede featurette, and I'll edit it in. I'll edit in the original version. A fellow will just slide that in instead. You won't get my smart-ass, jackass comments, but you'll get to see the whole thing. Or maybe I can splice in the jackassy. I don't know. I'll see what I can do. Anyway. Oh, it is a blast. It's fun. Now, don't get me wrong. The whole city, it's a big party for 10 days. But I'm not born and raised here, but I've lived here 42 years. So after a while, you just don't want to see any more cowboy hats or smell any more horse poop. But that's the theme of this stream, is it's an annual indoctrination. Just keep pounding it into your head. Wild West. Calgary is all about the cowboys and the Wild West. Those massive sandstone and red brick structures that are all buried or mud flooded, those weren't already here. No. There was nothing here but wild Injuns, buffalo, and cowboys, and the Northwest Mounted Police, Dudley Do-Right. And then some cattle ranchers came in, and then the railroad came in, and then they discovered oil. Yeah, okay. Sure. Good day, Ozbeast. How you going? Good to see you. See, the Aussies say, how you going? And up here we say, how's it going, eh? Anyway, well, we'll figure out the video and splicing it in, and I'll see what I can do. I'll work my not so magical video editing magic. See what I can do. Oh, Mysteries of the Realm says it was good to be here. Gotta go. See all of you again. Thank you very much for shooting in and joining us here for this thing. It's good to have you. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Take care. So as mentioned earlier, I also had a bunch of pictures that I found while mining the interwebs. old Stampede posters and stuff. Some of them are really funny because, like I said, they didn't just have rodeo; they had crazy stuff. To get the crowds keep coming back year after year, right? Until it really got established. Because for the first couple of years, like the Calgary Stampede itself actually started in the early 1900s, 1902, 1903, but it wasn't every year, and it wasn't firmly established in terms of a date. Sometimes it was in April, sometimes it was in September, but it was right around 1920, 1922. Stories vary that the first official, and then it was every year after that, same time of year every year. But, and up until that point, the early 20s, let's say 1920, 1922, up until that point, because it was kind of sporadic, they had to kind of do something to get the people to be like, wow, that sounds mind-blowing. I got to go and check that out. So a lot of that crazy stuff's on the posters. So I thought we'd look at some of those, and then I got some old photos of the old Calgary Stampedes from the 1910s and teens and the 1920s. Just kind of cool stuff. Hook your peepers onto that stuff and see what's going on with all of that. I just gotta find it. I prepared a. There it is. Prepared a special folder, but uh, it is what it is. I'm a new. All right, here we go. Is this what we're looking at? No, hang on. I fouled it up. See, I told you. And now the YouTube's going crazy again because it hates me. It doesn't like when I do this stuff. So it starts being a jerk. I mean, it is what it is. All right, let's try this again. Bear with me. Sorry. I know this is gripping entertainment and fascinating stuff. All right, here we go. Hopefully you can see that. Hopefully that's what you're seeing. Looks like you should be seeing that okay. So yeah, the Stampede, this one is 1912. And, it's just kind of a cool painting on this little, nothing super fancy. But you can see here that it's, already at that time, $20,000 in cash prizes. Of course, that's Canadian. So that's like $18 US, but anyway. Also saddles, chaps, bits, spurs, and so there you go. Got expert riders, ropers, cowboys, cowgirls, Indians, vaqueros, wild horses, wild cattle, stage races, and Red River carts. Very exciting. A carnival of cowboy sports, open world. That's, you could see how that would be pretty exciting. Hey, let's go check out that's crazy stuff. 1921, this one's pretty fancy. You got your fireworks. There's some of the crazy stuff I was talking about earlier. Auto polo. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. Polo, but instead of on ye old horseback, it's in cars, old cars, Ford Model T's or Model A's or whatever, I'm sure. And there you okay, horse races, you expect to see that at a rodeo fair thing, a cowboy indoctrination center. Rodeo. But then auto races, sure, okay. You can see in the background the grandstand is massive. think it was built 1920 or 1921. And got a nice domed structure with something on top of it in the back too. That's kind of neat. Don't know what that is because it's not there anymore. Because the fairgrounds, the Stampede grounds, the rodeo grounds, whatever, they're still in the same place. So then we got some of these here burly looking fellers. I guess they're the sponsors of this 1912 Stampede. You can see here September. I mean, it's been in July since I think 1920 or 22, but they were kind of all over the place. And it wasn't even 10 days here. It was only 4 days. P. Burns, that's Pat Burns or Patrick Burns. He's Burns Meats. They do like cold cuts and, salamis and ballpark franks and wieners and so on. Wieners. They make wieners. Anyway. Crazy cowboy there on a pissed off horse. Here they are going to appeal to the more upper crust of the Calgary area, the highfalutin cattle ranchers and so on and so forth. Now here it's June and July, late June, early July, 1914. Classy lady here. High class music and attractions, including tattoo. It's pretty classy. Nothing classier than a tattoo in the early 1900s, especially for a fine looking lady such as yourself. Easy, fella. Lassie. Apparently Lassie made an appearance. I don't know. Better Babies Contest. All right. I don't even know. Don't even know. This is actually a pamphlet or like one of those posters that they would, kind of slap up everywhere where it says post no bills, and they would slap it on with that liquid glue stuff anyways, right over the sign that says post no bills. They would post their bill. This is one of those. 1912, see, way over in September. Reunion of the old timers in the Great West. Off to the wild bunch. They do look like a bunch. This guy's swinging a lasso, or I don't know what that is. They're probably drunk on whiskey. So this is a grandstand. This is from 1922. You can see massive. I mean, this holds I think it's 2,000 people here. But then they could actually put additional seating along here as well. And then these are the concessions along here, concession stands here. So, and this is all part of the rodeo grounds. This is the rodeo grounds, and this is the rangeland where they have the chuck wagon races. But back in here is all of the, the fairgrounds and the rides and the midway and stuff as well. And some of the exhibition buildings. They'd have cattle auctions and horse auctions and stuff in here. Whatever else they do. Another shot of the grandstand, 1921, as you can see. And this is like a crazy ramp that goes down the side. I can't remember what this was for some kind of crazy daredevil stunt, but I can't remember what the stunt was. Be interesting to research it and maybe do a separate video on it. But yeah, you could just see, like, you could see there's, a person here. So you can see how big this structure is, massive. And then they build this massive thing on top of this already massive thing. These are the crappy seats where you're sitting out in the hot, blistering sun, and all of this dirt and dust is getting kicked up into your face, right up in your eyeballs. Right here, at least you're covered. So these are the cheap seats. Concessions way over here. Good luck getting yourself a frosty beer. Oh, that's the same shot again. Whoop. Oh, there you go. There's the backside of that grandstand. You can see big, huge structure, permanent structure. It's still there, but it has been renovated and added onto and modernized, so it doesn't even look the same anymore. It's got all these big, huge entrances now, multiple entrances and turnstiles and so on. And then you can see again that big, huge, crazy ramp-looking thing here in the background. This is some of the actual fairgrounds where there was rides and the midway and the games and the food and so on. So you can see how the people are dressed. This again is, the 19 teens, all of these are, the oldest these will be 1922. So these will all be in the 19 teens or the 1920, 21, 22, somewhere in there. See, the people are dressed really nicely. They're not dressed Western. Like today, people, when we go to the fairgrounds, we dress like cowboys. That's part of the whole shtick. A native, indigenous native Canadian Indian, then you would dress in your traditional. You're not going to dress like a cowboy, most likely. You're going to dress in your traditional First Nations attire. But dress very nicely here, The women wearing their big dresses with the bustles on the ass and, their big hats with, dead birds on them and stuff. Everyone's wearing dark suits because, it's not in the middle of the summer, sweltering heat or anything out in the open. But dressed very, very nicely. People, dressed up even to go to, a outdoor rodeo that smelled like horse crap. Another shot of the ground, some of the rides. So they had like the tilt-a-whirls, and of course we know they had the Ferris wheels, but they had all kinds of crazy rides, even back in the teens and early 20s. They had roller coasters, and they had the water chute, where you sit in a log and ride down the water chute and all that stuff back in the day. It was a nice big shot. This is also from 1922 as well. So you can see the back of the grandstand. The rodeo grounds is up over here, off on this side. As a Harley Davidson rolls by in the background. But anyway, and this is the midway, and this is how it's still set up today, where they have the midway. It's actually two big rows of games, rides, food vendors, all that stuff. You can see even into the 20s, people aren't dressing like cowboys. The only people that dressed like cowboys were the actual cowboys. People just dressed nicely, maybe a little more casual than those earlier photos, but yeah, you can see all the rides, the zipper and the barfinator and all that stuff. The fun house here. This is the, and again, using the parlance of the time, so pardon my, but it's the Indian village, and they still have this set up, but as a separate corner in the rodeo grounds, the so-called Indian village, First Nations. They set up teepees, and they dress up in their traditional thing, and they do stuff. They make, they do stuff. They tan hides, and they do make baskets, and they do beadwork and arts and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. That's admittedly, that is a very, very big part of the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, is the whole Native Indian narrative. Hey, did you ever hear about that time an airplane crashed into an amusement park ride at the Calgary Stampede? yeah, apparently this single prop biplane, this was 1921, I believe. It was just after World War One, if memory serves. But yeah, apparently it was one of those stunt play, loop-de-loop stunt air show planes. He crashed into this merry-go-round, with the one with the horses, the carousel. That's it, carousel. Oh, it says it right there, dummy, carousel. Yeah. No deaths from what I can recall, but a few injuries. And, then you got to get a bunch of people to help get that idiot the hell out of there. But how crazy is that? Right? And, of course, you got to have a very politically correct symbol on the side of your airplane so you can crash it into the ironically crash an Indian into a white man rodeo fairgrounds after we chase them off their land and do the whole cowboy narrative. Speaking of cowboy narrative and Indigenous First Nations, this is Guy Wiedek himself, that American showman, P.T. Barnum type character that came up here and said, well, I sure do like me that whole cowboy Indian thing. I think I'll do me like a Buffalo Bills Wild West show type thing up there in Calgary, Alberta, even though it's out in the middle of nowhere in the prairies and no one ever done heard of it. Nobody even knows where Calgary is. But by gum, I'm going to put it on the map. Ain't that right, fellers? Fellers? Yeah. Anyway, that's how I'm going to do it. Guy Wiedek is his name. He's the official creator, organizer, founder, dreamer upper of the Calgary Stampede. Back in the old Wild West days of the 19 teens in Calgary, Alberta, where it's cowboys and Indians, and even though you've got this big, huge 3, maybe 4-story structure in the background with all of this ornate limestone and sandstone work here, but cowboys and Indians. And there's another one of old Guy Wiedek. Howdy, I'm a cowboy in front of this massive sandstone castle-like structure. But no, pay no attention to that, because howdy, y'all. I'm just a lowly old cowboy. Been riding the range and the dusty old trails, chasing rum runners and wild Indians off out of here. I tell you what, I'm going to put me on the greatest outdoor show on earth. That there Calgary Stampede. 1912. There you go. That's the official photo. It's because it says it's official, so that makes it official. That's Old City Hall, by the way, or Old Town Hall. Now Old City Hall. Still there. We'll have a beautiful, beautiful sandstone structure. There he is with those 4 chaps from that poster we looked at a while back with P. Burns there. And there's Guy Wiedek wearing my fancy cowboy hat. These guys are looking at him like, why is he dressed like a cowboy? I thought we were doing business with this guy. I thought we were exchanging thousands of dollars here for this big money-making scheme. Why are we dealing with this city slicker wannabe cowboy with his crazy pants? Looking for some Freemason hand signs here, not seeing any. Not seeing any. Could be some Freemason ring there, maybe. Anyway, getting distracted. Again, got to push that, Cowboys and Indians narrative. So this is part of the parade that comes through downtown and ends at what they said in that little feature featurette. They called it the Victoria Park. Well, that's the neighborhood where the Stampede grounds are at. And again, to this day, still in that same location. It has been since the early 1900s. Yeah, you got to get that whole... Who would have thought that there were so many chiefs? I thought the chief was the head honcho. You know, the main man. The top of the teepee, if you will. Like, the more feathers, the more of a big shot you are. It's like, here they're lousy with, it's like you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a chief. Where are these guys just dressing up as chiefs and they're not really chiefs? Now, come on now. See, all part of the show. This is Chief Big Belly of the Sarcee. It's just a great shot from 1919. Let's see, looks like a Mountie in the background, or maybe a cowboy, I don't know. Got a few more shots of native indigenous peoples. This guy's awesome. I hate that the museum put their BS over top of this kick-ass looking dude's name, though. His name is Chief Yellow Horse of the, they say Blackfeet. That's incorrect. Bunch of dummies. It's Blackfoot. They are the Blackfoot Nation, not the Blackfeet. But anyway, also from 1919. Another great shot. I mean, I know it's a posed photograph. Hey, Chief, do you mind just standing there for a picture? And I sit still now. Now, just sit still down there for a spell now, Chief. But a great shot, though. I wonder where all these are. And, you know, you can't get in close enough to see. It looks like a medal. For sure, he's wearing a medal there. These are probably medals. Could be war medals. But, yeah, very stately looking. Very cool. This is also 1919. They didn't bother naming these guys. We can't even be bothered with these guys. So there's what would be known as a chief, right? That would be your village or your tribal leader. And in Canada, our First Nations, Native Indians are much like in the U.S. Some were nomadic. By the narrative, right? The official narrative is you had the nomadics in the prairies, or in the U.S., the Great Plains. They'd follow the herd of buffalo, and they'd supplement their diet with during harsher times with pemmican and bannock and deer, and maybe excuse me, some fishing. And then you had the coastal Indian tribes that pretty much stayed put because of all the resources that were there in terms of fishing and more temperate climates and all that. Same thing up here in Canada, right? And then your same narrative, you would have tribes, right? And each tribe would be broken down into sort of family groups or smaller communities. And the tribes would make up nations. So we have the Cree, the Sioux, we have the Piegan, the Blood, the Stoney, the Blackfoot, the Lakota. So each village would have its top dude, the chief. And this dude here, that to me, by the narrative of what we're taught, that stately looking man very much fits in with the narrative chief. I mean, look how beautiful that is. Eagle feathers. That's why the chief is always depicted with this type of headdress, because they're the rarest feathers, the most sought after of the feathers, at least of the American Native Indian. Hey, Eugenia's here. Welcome, Eugenia Retrospectology. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome. So yeah, so this would be to me the chief. And unlike that other picture, you don't have 18 chiefs in a row. You got your chief. And then to me, this would be maybe, this guy looks like he's high up too. He's got some fancy stuff going on here. See maybe horns or antlers, perhaps. So this perhaps is it's one of his right-hand men, an advisor. Maybe he's what we call a medicine man, I guess. He's a village elder of some sort. it's got to be of some sort of importance to be riding side by side this, what we were told is a chief. But these dudes look great. I think this is a fantastic shot. Very majestic, very stately looking. Very stoic. Here, at least we've got some names here, too. We have Sarsi. So there's Sarsi nation or tribe. Women and children in front of their teepees there. And again, I'm sorry, you know, this is the parlance of the time, the Indian Village, Calgary Stampede, 1912. So you have Unknown. Sorry, miss. Then you have Mrs. David One Spot. Cool last name. I always dig the indigenous last names. Johnny Thundercloud and whatnot. Much more interesting than Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. But anyway. And then here we have Mrs. Mary Swans. We won't bother naming the children because, you know, natives barely matter. Never mind their kids, I guess. No, that's how museums work, right? The Glenbow Museum is our big museum here in Calgary. They like to push the narrative, and their basement has 3 subfloors. So whatever they're hiding down there, who knows? But you can see, you know, very well dressed, not what you would initially picture as being Native American Indian. I mean, it's basically the same, Canadian American, when it comes to our First Nations. Here we're not seeing a lot of, you know, feathers and the Pocahontas-looking deerskin tunic-looking onesie little mini dress thing. Right here we're seeing beautiful woven fabrics. And I'm sure some of this was traded and so on and so forth. And again, this is in 1872. I mean, it's 1912, so, you know, but still, don't look too thrilled to be out in the hot sun. Out on the Stampede is basically a human museum exhibit, but, you know, it's another great shot. They unfortunately no info on this stately gentleman. But again, beautiful headdress. Even the horse, too. You know, the horse gets some love, too, right? Got to have some bling on your trusty steed. Thing is, they always have this long stick with feathers on it, too. And it's not a spear. And they do have bows and arrows, and that's his quiver there for his arrows and all that. But it's just like a long pole, but with like, doesn't have a flag on it or nothing. It just has a few feathers on it. So I don't really know what that is. Maybe it's symbolic of some sort. I don't know. So here's some shots of the Stampede Parade. So that was this morning here today. The Friday is the first day of the Stampede, and they always kick it off with a parade that starts at 9 a.m. and goes through the downtown and ends at the rodeo grounds, the fairgrounds, the Stampede grounds. So 1912, Cowboys and Indians, but with big, massive stone buildings with columns in the background. Very nicely decorated. Don't let this throw you. The Chicago Dairy Lunch. It's actually a Chicago Dairy Lunch counter. It's this crappy ribbon flag thing is hiding it. It used to just be down here. It was like one of those luncheonette type places. This is what is known as Stephen Avenue or 8th Avenue Southwest here now in Calgary. The parade no longer goes down this route. But I'll take you down there after the Stampede's over and all the tourists get the hell out of here. I'll take you down there. I'll have a look at some of these beautiful, beautiful sandstone and brick buildings adorned with, still some of them adorned with all kinds of crazy looking antiquitech and limestone details. And then, of course, the Victorians came in and tarted it up with all of that assembly kit stuff to make it even more super fancy. But yeah, 1912 Stampede Parade. This one is 1921. See people, you know, they're just hanging out rooftops. It's this guy. I'm just gonna sit right here precariously on this edge, right here. One leg's even going to dangle over a bit there. That's fine. Get a nice view of horses in Calgary, where there's literally hundreds of thousands of horses. I see horses every day, but I'm going to risk my life to look at more horses. And these look at these folks. That's one of those verandas on the front of a big, huge 3-story building. We're just going to climb out this here window and stand here on this veranda so we can look. I guess everybody really does love a parade, is what I'm saying. Look at these fools. They're not. Look at this. I'm just gonna lean over here. This guy here. I'm leaning over to a good look at these here horses and a tuba. There's a tuba. Okay. Maybe that's what got him excited, is he got a tuba here. But that's what, 40, 50 feet down? But, again, Cowboys, Indians, and beautiful castle-like sandstone, arched windowed buildings with columns all the way down, all the way down. Just for a bunch of cattle ranchers. Look at these clowns. The reason you're seeing the Union Jack everywhere, by the way, is Canada didn't have its official flag really yet until after World War I, when enough Canadian men died in an overseas war, European war that didn't involve Canada at all. Then they decided, okay, now you can just use your own flag, which was basically a big red flag with a beaver in the middle and the Union Jack up in the upper left-hand corner. So, yeah, that was great. We didn't actually have our Maple Leaf flag until 67, I believe, 1967, 100th anniversary. So, yeah, that's why you're seeing the old Union Jack everywhere. Even this kid, like, step back, kid. Hey, fella, keep an eye on your kids, will you? I can't right now. I'm busy looking at horses. Here, son, here's how you do it. Here's how you got to do it, son. You got to stand precariously. You got to stand precariously on this little ledge here so that you can go ass over tea kettle down 40, 50 feet. Anyway, moving on. This was also from that same time period, 21, 22, same Stephen Avenue. And yeah, just, lots of bare bones Wild West Cowboys. Because if you're a cattle rancher, first of all, if you're what cattle rancher is going to be living in the city where you need all these buildings? Sure, I mean, again, there's merchants and you got churches and you got, different businesses and people that live in this, and there's banks and all that. But the whole narrative is Calgary is just all cowboys and Indians, and that's how it sprang up. Mounties to these massive, beautiful castle-like old world buildings. And even by the time this photo was taken, some of these you can see have been modified. They've obviously taken the clock out of here. Just another part of the parade here. Again, this one I think is early teens. It's 1919, I think, is this one as well. So there's a lot of those Indigenous, First Nations, Native Indian photos. That's a mouthful. I'm trying to be respectful, but I mean, come on. But anyway, just, your basic horse and buggy or horse, a stagecoach. Wild West, it's called a stagecoach. But in the background, again, big stone buildings, arch windows. Looks like it probably should have been one level taller at one point. because this roof line looks awful low. But anyway, another shot of the parade here. $1912. There you go. 1912. So here got some Indigenous First Nations here, part of the parade, and again, massive buildings all in the background, just for a bunch of shit kickers out in the middle of nowhere in the West. Got some rodeo photos too, because these are some really cool action shots. This is 1923 bull riding. You can see that's just dirt and some scrub there. That's it. This guy's not wearing he's not wearing a helmet, padding, nothing. Today they do. Today they wear like a vest that's sort of like a padding, but that's more so that they don't get gored by the horns. Saddle bronc, another favorite of mine. It's like bareback, but with a saddle on it, and that's where they got to do the spurring motion while the horse is kicking and whipping about. It was a great shot, 1912. He's got his sheep's wool chaps on there to help protect. Those are authentic too. Oftentimes that's real chaps. They weren't just the leather chaps that we see in like the Village People guys wearing or bikers or whatever. I don't know. Or strange guys. Anyway, 1919, this is basically a carnival barker type. He announces this is Slim Allen. He announces up next, the saddle bronc and whatever, right? To mystify and dumbfound you for your amazing entertainment, feast your eyes on the incredible acrobatic skills of the amazing wild bronco busting cowboys of the Calgary Stampede. All that. And boom, there you go. That same time period, 1919. You can see some of the whoops, lost my there we go. You can see some of the exhibition buildings there in the background. Because again, it wasn't just a rodeo. They had farm equipment auctions, cattle auctions, horse auctions, all that kind of stuff. Is that the last one? That might be the last one. Yep, that is the last one. So yeah, I agree. No fear. They're just, professional rodeo participants, cowboys, cowgirls. I mean, that's tough. They are athletes. To be able to get onto a bull or a bucking bronco when it's all ticked off like that, incredible. And it takes years of practice and obviously a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, broken bones. It's very dangerous, but that's what makes it exciting. And of course, they do it for of their own free will. But it's pretty amazing stuff to watch. Like I said, for me, the highlight is the chuck wagon races. See, because I was born in Montreal, Quebec, right? So, I didn't move out here until I was 10 years old. And as a 10-year-old from Montreal, Quebec, I'd never heard of Calgary, let alone Alberta. Like I just had never, I knew where Alberta was, but I just had a vague idea, I would have to point it on a map. And Calgary, never heard of it, right? So when my dad explained to me what it was, I built this picture in my head that it was like a Clint Eastwood movie. Like when we would get to Calgary, we'd pull in, and it would be like going back in time. It would be like the Wild West, wooden sidewalks, dirt roads, wooden buildings, a mercantile, a barber shop, a dry goods store, a blacksmith. And of course, it wasn't like that at all. It was a modern, bustling metropolitan city, one of the biggest in Canada. And they've been a boom town on and off since after World War I, right? So urban sprawl and massive skyscrapers and the whole bit. And it was kind of a letdown for me as a kid, right? And it just goes to show really the indoctrination or the level of sort of propaganda that has been put into, I don't know, the public education system, and just how each town or each city has kind of given its own little story or its own little narrative. Like this town was founded because it made delicious root beer or whatever. You know what I mean? Calgary was there because they built a fort there because to chase away the illegal whiskey guys and to protect the fur traders from the Wild West bandits. You know, I'm thinking, yeah, well, okay, sure, whatever. You know, and it becomes so deeply ingrained and so part of the, not only the public education system, but the public consciousness through pop culture reinforcement, I guess, that, the reason that I built up this idea in my head that that's what Calgary was like, that it was like a Clint Eastwood movie, was because that was the narrative of what it was supposed to have been. Wooden buildings and tumbleweeds and gunfights and wild Indians and, all that crazy stuff. Herds of buffalo. And to some extent, I'm sure, yeah, of course. But they don't tell you about the 5-story sandstone block buildings that look like castles with the flood windows. They don't tell you about the massive red brick buildings that are all over this city that are over 125, 130 years old. And there was never any red clay brick, like kiln fired brick factories here in Calgary, ever. The closest one is, I think, something like 150 kilometers away. Basically a 2-hour drive today on modern highways. So back before the railroad came in, on a horse and buggy or horse and cart to truck loads of brick to build 3 and 4-story buildings in the 1880s and 1890s. I mean, 1881 is just when Calgary became a city. It was a town before that in the 1870s. And before that, it was just basically a post office and a town hall and a church. And then a school, then pretty soon a mercantile, because there was a few cattle ranchers around, and this was all built supposedly around the fort, the Mountie, the police fort. Our national police are the Mounties, right? And that's supposedly who built that fort. That's still there to this day. We'll also go and have a look at that sometime this summer. And the reason that I built that idea in my head is because that's what my dad told me. Well, it used to be, back in the day, it was like the Wild West, son. It was cowboys, native, indigenous, native Indians, and buffalo, and cattle ranches, and gunslingers in the Wild West. And yeah, to some extent, yes, there were gunslingers here. There was Wild West. There was train robberies and stagecoach robberies and all that shit, fur trappers and all that, sure. But I don't think it was the dusty, empty no man's land that they portrayed it to be. Like in the Clint Eastwood movies, where you have 5 wooden buildings, lining your main street, which is dirt road, with your church at one end and the blacksmith at the other, and some stranger comes riding into town. I mean, if the majority of the population of Calgary at the turn of the last century were ranchers, they lived outside of the town limits, only came into town to do their trading, to go to auctions, to do their banking, to do some business. Even the churches they went to weren't here in town. They were out in the little outskirts where they lived, and the schools were out in the outskirts where they lived. Yeah, that's right, Oz. Says when you think about it, they lay it on pretty thick. Yeah, by 1912, main streets and 3 or 4 story buildings. Yeah, in some cases, 5 and 6 story sandstone buildings, arched windows, domes. Yeah, just crazy. And mind you, by 1912, mind you, there was a few thousand people in Calgary. But a lot of those sandstone buildings and red brick buildings were built in the 1880s, 1870s, 1890s. The railroad didn't even come in here until, what was it, 1887 or 1884 or something like that, or maybe even early 1890s. I'm sorry, exact date escapes me. Where Calgary got its own line connecting Calgary to the main national locomotive train line. So really, the first big boom wasn't until the oil was found. Well, no, there was a little bit of that cattle boom because there was the land rush, right? For those land lotteries where you win free land. And like in that, what was that, Tom Cruise movie there, Far and Away, where they do the big land grab race across the frontier in the U.S. Same thing they had up here too in Alberta. So there was a bit of a boom. But in the early stages, even up into the 1890s, before the railroad came in, everything had to have just been trucked in by horse and cart, horse and buggy, whatever. And if the majority of your citizenry are ranchers and farmers, it doesn't make sense to have these big, massive sandstone buildings. It makes sense after the Great Fire that we had, sure. But that's a whole other thing. And I did a live stream about that a couple of months ago because that's hinky in itself. Osby's asking, yep, we did. He's asking, did Canada ever have a big gold rush? Absolutely. A couple. One in the Canadian Shield out east around the Great Lakes in Ontario. And then, of course, the Yukon gold rush. The Yukon is the big one. Basically around the same time as the San Francisco gold rush, right? The 49ers, 1849, basically around that same time period. Exact same narrative. Guys trekking up in the middle of nowhere, risking their lives with nothing but a mule or a wheelbarrow and a shovel or a pickaxe. Heading out into the Yukon, right, which is just as far north as Alaska, just a little east of Alaska is the Yukon. There was no roads going up there. There were really no trails going up there. There was nothing up in the Yukon. There was just fur trappers that lived up there. And there was, a Hudson's Bay Trading Company trading post out. And of course, there was a Northwest Mounted Police outpost out there to protect the Hudson's Bay Trading Post, of course. But nothing up there but, indigenous villages, really, and fur traders and stuff. That's it. But yeah, boom, big gold rush. But never a big city built of the result of the rush up there for some reason. Huh? Not like San Francisco. Huh? Gold rush in San Francisco and supposedly big, huge city pops up out of nowhere as a result. Well, there was already a little hamlet or a little town there, but you know what I mean. Goes from a handful of people to thousands, seemingly overnight. Well, why not up in the Yukon? Why isn't there a big, city of, 1 million people or more up in the Yukon? Because it's cold as hell in the winter, but reasons too, I'm sure. So yeah, there you go. Part of the old Cowboy Indoctrination Expo here on New West Reset. Just kind of taking a peek at our annual indoctrination known as the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede. Known as the greatest outdoor show on earth, created by a guy named Guy Wiedeck. a showman, a P.T. Barnum type guy who decided that he could take the Buffalo Bills Traveling Wild West show, take it to the next level, and make it sort of a worldwide event that rather than having it travel around, he could have it stay in one spot and have people come to the event every year. Eventually, is how it worked out. So, could make it an annual destination, a vacation spot. And really, to some extent, it did become and still is in a lot of ways today a vacation for a lot of rich people, a lot of fairly well-off people from all over the world. We get wealthy Japanese tourists and European tourists and people from South and Central America. People that, have a little bit of money in their pockets, a little bit of extra resources that they can throw around, and they want to do something different than going to, some tropical beach vacation all the time or some fabulous ski Aspen, Colorado thing all the time. They want to do something different. So it's like, oh, let's check out this whole Cowboy thing. Like 1 million people a year go to this, or 1 million people in 10 days go to this thing. And it's once a year and it's a big deal. It's like Mardi Gras, but Cowboys. It's a big party. And, and let's face it, there's fun and frivolity and a good time is had by all. And it is a big party. But there's a lot of crap that goes on here too. There's a lot of debauchery and drunken stupidity that goes on here too. And crime shoots up and injuries. And, we have a light rail train that runs above ground, like those European sort of street cars, as opposed to an underground subway here in the city. And it runs along 7th Avenue downtown, right through the downtown core. Vehicles aren't allowed on there. It's just for the trains. And people drive their cars down there, or they try to walk in front of the train. These trains travel at like 60 kilometers per hour, and they weigh 40 tons. And, bump my camera. Sorry. There we go. And yeah, people are just, they don't get it, right? So it's dangerous. And so there's a lot of goofy stuff that goes on. And just people get drunk and do stupid shit all the time. So it can get to be a little bit crazy and a little dangerous. It's more fun than dangerous, so, which is a good thing. I would have thought that, the whole Wild West, cowboys and Indians, shoot 'em up rodeo thing would be a thing 100. Whoever would have thought, So it looks like we're experiencing a few more technical difficulties here. So I think I'm going to get ready to bring this thing to a close here rather shortly. It's kind of getting kind of late anyways. It's coming up. Yeah, it's 11 p.m. local time here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I've been jabbering and jaw-jacking. A guy's been rambling for 2 hours now about cowboys and chuck wagon races here. So yeah, I think I'll get ready to sign off for tonight. Oh, I didn't even see you sneak in, New. You sneaky sneak. Welcome. Good to see you. Thanks a lot for shooting in. Didn't even see you. So yeah, to make a short story long. Oh, we did have a gold rush. At least 2 that I know of. Not too much gold here in Calgary. A little further upstream up the Bow River, getting further into the mountains from where I am. I'm just in the foothills, right? The rolling foothills, the undulating rolling foothills. But once you get right up in the jagged peaks of the beautiful snow-capped Canadian Rocky Mountains, Well, there's some gold up in them there hills, but really it was up in the Yukon was the big thing. So once again, I want to thank all of you for joining me here. Yours truly, Frankie, here at New West Reset for another live stream. Just having a little fun here, talking about the Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, our annual rodeo and exhibition and fair, and it's kind of reinforces the propaganda indoctrination of the whole cowboy thing. That's the designation that Calgary has been stamped with. That's it. It's dunk cowboy for you, Calgary. Oh, okay. I guess that's our thing. So I had a lot of fun, and I hope all of you enjoyed it. And for those of you that are going to shoot in after the fact, I'm going to try to fix and finagle and flurf around a bit with some of the technical difficulties and see if maybe I can re-edit that little featurette, because I quite enjoy it. And the picture quality actually, not that you would know from watching it here, unfortunately, but the picture quality was actually quite good, and sound quality, considering it was from 1947. So I'll see what I can do with that, and I'll see what I can do about improving things for the next one in August, which I think for that one we'll take a visit at my hometown, my borning city, the city I was born in, Montreal, or as we say it out there, Montréal, Quebec. Eh? Oui, oui, ho, ho, ho. I'll have a look at some of old Montreal, specifically one of the oldest cities in North America, a World Heritage Site, and tons of old mud flood buildings. And we'll have a look at some cool stuff in and around old Montreal and the old port for August. Why August specifically for Montreal? Well, in 1980, when we moved from Montreal to here in Calgary, it was in August. So makes sense to me. I don't know. It is what it is. So yeah, thanks again. Really appreciate it. I hope you had fun. If you did, just let me know down below there. Just kind of beep boop pop it for me. Of course, do all the other Hutu stuffs. And until the next one, have a good one. That's going to seal the deal here for Frankie and the West Reset. Have a good night, a good day, or a good morning. All right, take care. Cheers.